Jazz Chisholm Jr. reportedly traded to the New York Yankees. It was coming. It felt inevitable. The return, not yet fully clear, but it appears Jazz Chisholm Jr. will be headed to New York. A great landing spot for Jazz, but Marlins fans will be extremely frustrated by this one. Tons to get into on an emergency Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins. This is your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up at Miami Marlins _UK. This is your team every day. And thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen. This is coming at you on Saturday, an emergency podcast, Saturday, the 27th of July. There's also a YouTube channel as well, guys. Make sure you hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Join me in the comments as well. Let me know your immediate reaction to this Jazz Chisholm Jr. news. Nothing is officially official, but as soon as Craig Mish is tweeting something, it is official. We don't know the full return, but Jazz Chisholm Jr. is headed to the Yankees. Great landing spot for him. Tons to get into around Jazz. And the return, we know one name at this point. I'm recording this immediately after the news has dropped. We know one name. There are, I believe, 3 prospects coming back to the Marlins, but headlined by a power-hitting catcher that is relatively near to big league ready. Tons to get into here, guys. This episode is sponsored by our good friends over at SupplyHouse, and SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop your next plumbing, h-vac, or electrical job and get fast shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. So let's start with Jazz Chisholm Jr. Let's start with what the Yankees are getting. Let's also remind ourselves around Jazz Chisholm Jr. and his career with the Marlins. Reminder, Jazz was traded. It was also at the deadline, a deadline deal, a 1-for-1 swap with Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen had made his major league debut at that point. Jazz was relatively near to big league ready. This was a deal that Derek Jeter effectively made happen. He identified Jazz Chisholm Jr. as the franchise shortstop of the future. Jeter loved Jazz and wanted to make this happen. We then, from a Marlins fan base perspective, have totally enjoyed Jazz Chisholm Jr.'s profile, personality, swag, flair, everything like that. It's fair to say it's been an up and down career with the Marlins for Jazz. Primarily, I would say, linked to health. I think that's the one thing we have to call out with Jazz is that each and every season there has been health issues, injury issues specifically. And in 2024 now, at this point, the Marlins have made the move. Jazz has been healthy all year long. He's been out in center field pretty much all year long. I'm very interested to see where he plays for the Yankees. But the knock around Jazz and the issue that we faced into here has been staying on the field. Jazz, in terms of his own personality, how he rates himself, etc., Jazz believes he's a superstar. No doubt about it. Jazz believes that he is. He has the potential. I remember before this season, the way he described it, he was like 30-30 is a bad year. 40-40 is what I'm targeting. Just a news and note on that. The Jazz Chisholm Jr. 40-40 tracker that I have ticking along on Twitter will continue, guys. I'm a huge Jazz Chisholm Jr. fan. I absolutely love the guy. These are the types of players that excite me. And it's, for me personally, I'm going to, this is tough news. It's tough to take. For me personally, not all fans are directly aligned with how they view Jazz. I'm definitely at, the extreme aspect of it, really, where I absolutely love what Jazz brings. We're going to dig into this in more detail, but listen, this is tough news, no doubt. And so I'll still keep the ticker rolling on, no doubt about it. Even though it will be likely Yankees home runs and stolen bases, and man, oh man, I think this is a really good fit for Jazz. But let's go back to what we've seen recently, from Jazz this season specifically, remained out in center field and has continued to improve in center field. In terms of the health, he's barely missed a game. I think he's had maybe 2 off days all year. He's DHing a little bit, little bit of time at second base while Otto Lopez was down, but Jazz has predominantly been in center field every single day in terms of what we've seen from Jazz offensively. So that from the health perspective, it's been great. He's been looking after his body, all good. From an offensive standpoint, what we've seen from Jazz, strikeouts down, walks up, hitting against lefties, much improved. Jazz right now is turning himself into and becoming a true everyday above average and soon to be maybe elite player. Jazz is continuing to progress. When I think about the way Skip Schumacher describes it and talks about Jazz, I think it's probably a fair assessment, really. I mean, it's more than a fair assessment. Skip Schumacher knows Jazz as well as anyone, I guess. And Jazz has always had the mentality of, I can out-talent you. I'm the most talented guy, and I can out-talent you on the field. I think what we've seen is that's taken him so far to, a 1-2 war guy, whatever it might be. That's taken him to a level. But the evolution of Jazz Chisholm Jr., particularly in 2024, in my opinion, I mean, we saw him scorching in 2022. But in 2024, the game has changed. And he's starting to evolve as a player. He wants to be an everyday player. Last season, there was a relative chunk of time where he was being platooned, not trusted against lefties. Jazz has answered that. So in terms of the offensive aspect, the power is still there. Maybe he won't get to 30. I mean, the change of ballpark now, I mean, who knows? Who knows with that one? I mean, he's currently on, I think, 13 home runs at this point. Let's say he ends with 25. 25, he's going to steal 40 bags, like 25-40, playing center field for the Yankees. I mean, the Yankees need a boost as well at this point. That to me is top level production here with Jazz. We now have to talk about the personality aspect with Jazz Chisholm Jr. because it's fair to say, in reality, the health has been one issue, but there's definitely been some off the field clubhouse related issues with Jazz, not him specifically. And I think the one thing with him, we've seen it. He's a very modern day guy. He's a guy from the Bahamas, very flash, believes in himself, extreme confidence, everything. It's fair to say that maybe some of the old guard aren't particularly fond of that approach, and that's caused friction. That caused friction in the clubhouse when Miguel Rojas was El Capitan, Jesus Aguilar, the Latin guys, the offensive guys, they were trying to steer things in a certain way. There's certain rules, etc. And it's fair to say that Jazz, I think, treaded the line, maybe fell over the line at times, I would say. It then culminated with this podcast appearance this offseason, which was explosive by podcast form, considering Jazz still an active player, Miguel Rojas still an active player. Didn't name Miguel Rojas by name, but we know who he was talking about. And so to do that type of podcast, as an active player was, revolutionary in some ways, but dangerous in another. That then creates this narrative we see with the media where GMs are seemingly put off by the brashness of Jazz Chisholm Jr. Can he make it work in a big market, in a big boy clubhouse, on a team that's trying to win? Is that the right environment for Jazz Chisholm Jr.? Those are the questions that have been asked in recent days, weeks. And I think in reality, and I understand why those questions have been asked, because there has been some issues. There's been some clashes. There's been some culture issues. And Jazz has been around and in the center of that. I think some of it, it was probably verging on bullying from Miguel Rojas, Jesus Aguilar, etc. They were bullying Jazz. They were cutting up his shoes. They were wrecking his gear. Like, for Jazz Chisholm Jr., who's a very flashy guy, takes great pride in his appearance, has probably hundreds and thousands probably of sneakers and custom bits. Cutting up someone's stuff is going to be like a red rag to a bull. Like, that is going to create an atmosphere that is unsustainable. And the funny thing is, with all of this clubhouse stuff, you listen to the pod all you want, the clubhouse stuff, what it showed to me was actually the problem came down to Miguel Rojas and Jesus Aguilar were the problem. They were moved on quickly. Jazz Chisholm Jr. remained. And since those guys have gone, the clubhouse changed. What did we see? We saw the Marlins improve on the field. We've seen Jazz Chisholm Jr. grow as a person and in the clubhouse and with his production on the field. We've seen all of that. As soon as those guys were out, Jazz took the next step. He was the one willing to go to the team, go to Kim Ang at the time, Skip Schumacher, call it out. Guys, we're struggling at center field. There's no obvious solution. I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the team and go out there and learn a brand new position in spring training on the fly. That's the kind of guy that I want in my team, in my clubhouse. They're the kind of traits that I want, who puts the team first. That's what Jazz Chisholm has already proven to everyone. So all of this stuff in the last couple of weeks around brashness, uncertain about fitting into clubhouses, it's a load of baloney. Baloney. And in reality, we've heard the Yankees rumors. They were the first rumors that surfaced. Maybe they were, sources put out there because, well, you're trying to slightly devalue. They're looking for the best deal, right? They're looking for the cheapest price point possible to get a deal done. So was that what was going on? The Yankees were funneling this out, trying to devalue Jazz, unsettle other GMs, get this momentum building where in the back of their minds, they were just desperate to get a deal done. And the reason they're desperate to get a deal done is Jazz is a star. He's an absolute star in all aspects. And we've seen that, and the testimony shows that. In terms of Skip Schumacher, he is accountability 101. He is Mr. Accountability. Skip Schumacher loves Jazz, loves him. All of the media guys close to Jazz in the last couple of years, since the clubhouse culture changed, all positive words. Every fan I've ever heard from talking about Jazz have said nothing but positive things. Actually, he's by far the most engaging player. This is why it's going to be a real sting for the fan base. So the fans love him. The media love him. Skip loves him. His teammates, the current ones anyway, love him. And frankly, New York is going to absolutely love Jazz. The Marlins have moved Jazz Chisholm Jr. with not just, this isn't a rental guy. This is a guy that has 2 more years of club control, of a guy that, frankly, is already taking his game to the next level, has already taken his game. We're going to see the next evolution of Jazz Chisholm Jr. We absolutely are in New York. He is going to be immense in New York. The ballpark is going to be perfect for Jazz. I looked at his numbers last night. What's he like? Home road splits. Surprise, surprise. At home, the numbers are suppressed. Surprise, surprise. On the road, you've got a significantly above average hitter. I'm going to carry on this conversation, but before we do that, firstly, let's let you know about our good friends over at Booking.com. Yes, sir. And this episode of Locked On Marlins is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. And with summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities, or maybe even New York at this point. For everyone that's maybe transitioning over to a Yankees fan at this moment, I don't know. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. For me, Booking.com, my go-to app for any travel, especially sports travel. I want to be close to the ballpark. I know what my budget is. I know I want a good breakfast. I know my wife wants to be happy. All of these things required. Booking.com helps me get there fast and for the right price every single time. So from hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. And this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports, as we know. I loved them a little bit more before this deal happened, I'm not going to lie. But I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down and we get fewer games, the sports, they're not sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, guys, welcome back to an emergency podcast of Locked On Marlins, Saturday, the 27th of July. Reports that Jazz has been traded to the New York Yankees. 3 prospects expected in return for the Marlins. Jazz Chisholm Jr. with 2.5 or 2 1/3 years of control has been moved. This is the Rays model. This is the Bendix way. This is what we've seen. We've just seen it down the road. Randy Arozarena, same contract situation, much cheaper, Jazz Chisholm Jr. than Randy, by the way, but same control situation. Arozarena moved. The feedback immediately from people analyzing that deal feels light. It feels like a light return. No top 100 prospects, seemingly, by the lists. Let's take no notice about prospect lists. We've all learned that many times that, because you appear at some portion of a prospect list, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. But Peter Bendix has moved. He's already moved Luis Arias this year for 3 prospects, plus some salary relief with Usak Go. So, 4 players back, but really it was 3. He's already moved Luis Arias. That's the batting champ for the NL last year from the Marlins 2023 postseason number 5 seed roster. We then get Jazz Chisholm Jr., he is by far the best Marlin offensive player. He's the best player. I mean, you could say Tanner Scott has been the best player, and in some ways he probably has been. But Jazz Chisholm Jr. by far the best offensive player for the Marlins this season. 2.5 years of control, traded. This is the Rays way. This is what we will expect as Marlins fans now. And I saw tons of Rays fans yesterday on Twitter littered around where big name guys that have been a big part of your franchise, and Randy Arozarena was absolutely that for the Rays, moved quickly and seemingly underwhelmingly. But that's the Rays model. That's what they do. You get near ARB2 and it's time to go. That is the model. Never fall in love with a player again. With the Rays, the Marlins, never fall in love. There's no point. None. You're going to get 4 years max out of them. 4 years max, and then they're going to be gone for another 3 prospects. 1 for 3s, 1 for 3s, 1 for 3s. That's the business model, guys. You move the guys before they get expensive. You bring in the next wave, and you see if you can replace the production. That's the model. Frankly, the model, from a Rays perspective, they've been in the mix for many years consistently. So that's the overall objective. It's the overall objective, and I get that. But at the same time, there's only so many elite players in the game. There's only so many. There's a lot of, okay players. There's a lot of, replacement level players that are playing the game. Like, there's a big fat in the middle of guys that are interchangeable. And then there's the elite. Many people don't believe that Jazz Chisholm Jr. is or can be an elite player. I've watched Jazz for many years now. And my eyes, my British eyes that haven't followed the game for that long, tell me that Jazz, if you watch the games, and it's easy to go and look up, the numbers and compare, hey, we look at WAR, and WAR's an easy way of comparing players. Listen, go and watch the games with Jazz. Go and watch what he does on the field every single day. And you tell me that Jazz isn't the difference maker. He's the difference maker. He's going to be a huge difference maker for the Yankees. No doubt about it. But some of this doesn't quite show up on the stat sheet. Maybe it's because Jazz, the projection is he should be a top 10 player in the game. Maybe that the hype levels of Jazz, the marketing around him is this is a top 5 player in the game, and maybe he isn't quite at that level at this point. Could he get there? Maybe. Will New York help him? Probably. Will he thrive in a big market? Absolutely. Jazz is going to take his game to the next level. In my opinion, he is an above average guy. He's an above average. And this is the point. This is the point here where if you keep moving elite guys for prospects, at some point, you're just going to become a replacement level team. When you hit on guys that are studs, that are still young, that are still controllable, I find it very strange that that's the moment to move them. Rosarena, Jazz. I find it strange that these guys are traded with 2+ years of control. But that's the model. This is the model. But what happens if the model is slightly off now? What happens if the league has worked out the model? What happens if everyone else is using the same model? But at the same time, they're paying guys. Is the model now flawed? I don't know. Let's look to see how, the Marlins are a couple of years behind the curve with the Rays. So we'll continue to eyeball the Rays and see how they go. But right now, the Rays, they've taken a little bit of a step back this year. They've sold some guys. Let's see what happens in 25 for the Rays. What happens if they're below 500 again? And the next year? Is the model outdated? I don't know. Let's talk about the one guy that we know that the Marlins are getting back. Well, I say we know. The rumors that the Marlins are getting back, and it is a big power-hitting catcher. So listen, we haven't seen the exact return at this point, but Agustin Ramirez appears to be the headline piece coming back. He is currently, he's 22. Yeah, I guess he currently is 22. And he has been a big power-hitting catcher. So we're going to talk about him in a little bit more detail shortly. But before we do that, firstly, let you know about our good friends over at SupplyHouse. Yes, sir. And SupplyHouse, you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trade, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. The easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? No problem. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. Talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trademaster program. Every Trademaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM. And order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. All right, guys, welcome back to an emergency podcast of Locked On Marlins with me, Peter Pratt. We are reacting to the news that Jazz Chisholm Jr. reports anyway has been traded to the New York Yankees. 3 prospects in return has been the number shared. I'm recording this pretty much straight as the news breaks. As I'm talking here, I'm just trying to check in and see if there's any further insight. This information is still extremely fresh, raw, however you want to phrase it. But right now, we don't have the full return from the Yankees. We'll dig into that in tomorrow's episode. But I wanted to hop on, give the immediate reaction to Jazz being traded. I'm a Marlins fan. Jazz is the best Marlins player at this point, active player. Some would say Sandy is, and he probably is. But I am a huge Jazz Chisholm Jr. fan. A lot of fans are huge Jazz Chisholm Jr. fans. He's the only real difference maker in the offensive side for an offense that has been pretty much smack bang at the bottom for many years. He's the only flash. He's the only inspiration. And so losing Jazz at this point is extremely hard to take for me as a fan. My viewing experience will be dramatically reduced with no Jazz in this lineup. Some will joke and say, well, he's normally not in the lineup anyway. But this is why Jazz has been traded right now. He's proven his health this year. He's improved his offensive production. His defense is still a work in progress, but is improving at center field. From a Yankees perspective, I'm interested to see, does Jazz actually go into the infield? Jazz wants to be an infielder. He moved into center field to do his thing for the team. He is a team-first guy that wants to do well. Love Miami. And Jazz, to you, thank you, sir. Absolutely. So let's talk about what the Marlins get back here. And all we know at this point is we have a bopper of a catcher, Agustin Ramirez, coming back, who is 22, currently in AAA. And listen, you have to look at the numbers in 24. He's hit 20 home runs across AA and AAA. It's fair to say most of the damage has come at AA. And so whilst he is near big league ready, some would say, the eye-popping numbers sit at AA with a 942 OPS at AA this year, 16 home runs in 58 games. He's then been up at AAA. It's fair to say it's not been quite as encouraging. OPS dropping down to 693, 4 home runs in 29 games. So don't know a ton about the guy. Clearly, I'm not a prospect guy. What I have seen, just kind of chatter around it, is he was the Yankees' 20th or 21st or 30th ranked prospect. In the recent refresh, he was expected to be bumped way up that list. And so it's fair to say he's a trendy guy. He's trending in the right direction. And the other thing, this is very interesting, considering the move they made with AJ Puk and the profile of guy, the headline guy in De Los Santos, that pretty much seemingly big league ready, but a huge power guy as well. Interestingly, the Peter Bendix at this point is going heavy power that will get over any fence, even Lone Depot. I spoke about it yesterday with Joe Fazaro on that topic specifically. So they've basically doubled down here. The interesting question for me is how quickly these guys progress. We don't know the other two names at this point. Nothing is confirmed. Please remember that as you listen to this episode that is recorded immediately, pretty much after the news and rumors start to circulate that Jazz has been moved to the Yankees. Further analysis to come, but the expectation is the big bopper of a catcher is in the mix. No idea what he's like as a catcher itself, but it's fair to say from a Marlins perspective, since JT Realmuto, they've had some serious issues at catcher. If the Marlins can solve their catching issue with this trade, then absolutely that would be a positive. No doubt about it. The Marlins generally, my sense with Jazz and this deal, the direction of the Marlins is 24 is a wash, as we know. Peter Bendix waved the white flag in the first week of May. I believe 2025 will be a wash as well. And, 2026 is where you may start to get, trending back towards a degree of competitiveness, maybe. So that means that Jazz's window and value, I can understand why there was maybe a reason to move him now. Since the All-Star break, since these rumors have started to circulate, Jazz has taken his game to the next level. It's fair to say. He's played his way out of Miami. The sense was that Jazz wouldn't be moved this deadline. There wasn't a market for him. There was no real value for Jazz Chisholm Jr. But as soon as the All-Star break went, rumors circulated, Jazz has taken his game absolutely to the next level. Day after day after day, flashy, game-changing plays from Jazz Chisholm Jr. The Yankees are an immense fit for Jazz. I'm already seeing the outfield here of Jazz, Judge, and Juan Soto. Boy, oh boy, that is the best outfield in baseball, unquestionably at this point. Those three, what a mix. What a mix of tools. I haven't watched a Yankees game when it hasn't been versus the Marlins for many years, probably. But I'm going to have my eyeballs on the Yankees. It's an amazing fit for them. The Marlins are doing what they're doing at this point. Peter Bendix is already committed to this rebuild, retool, whatever we want to call it. This is the Rays model. As you approach 2-ish years of control remaining, it's time to move on your best guys and get 3 guys back. Add to the farm. That's the model. The problem is the Marlins don't quite have the farm system right now to handle that. And so the team is probably going to remain at this poor level for, a year or two until the talent starts to catch up. We'll see. But in terms of the one name that's out there, I think you have to be intrigued by the profile. Georgie Alfaro, Jacob Stallings. What have we had? Nick Fortes, Christian Bethancourt, Stallings. Did I say him already? The Marlins have had a conveyor belt of catchers since JT Realmuto was traded, and what was an absolutely disgraceful trade it ended up turning out. But if the Marlins can fix their catching position, it'd be a huge boost. Clearly, feels like they may have fixed their first base situation as well. Another huge boost. Xavier Edwards looking very interesting in the infield. Jake Berger still there in the organization for multiple years. The question will be for the next few days, considering Jesus Sanchez and Brian De La Cruz's proximity to arbitration, is could either or both of them be moved as well? Could the Marlins really tear it down to the studs at this point? We'll wait and see. But guys, that's going to wrap us up here for Locked On Marlins. An emergency podcast. Jazz Chisholm Jr. expected to be traded to the New York Yankees. 3 prospects coming back. In my opinion, this is an amazing deal and an amazing fit for Jazz with the Yankees. I think it gives them a huge boost for this year and for the next couple of years. I think Jazz Chisholm Jr. will take his game to the next level in New York. There's going to be extra levels of scrutiny. There's going to be extra pressure. We've seen that. The boos come quick and loud in that market. But Jazz, I think, has the personality to handle that. No doubt about it. The Marlins get back 3 prospects. We'll wait and see the profile of those guys. But overall, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen, guys. I'll be back tomorrow digging into this trade in further detail. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. I look forward to seeing you then.